Good morning and welcome to this morning's episode of the St. Augustine Chronicles. Today I'm so excited to talk to Ellen Walden, who is the Executive Director of Home Again St. John's. Thank you for coming in. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me.
Before we get started on the show today, let's talk about our sponsors. The Kookaburra Coffee, proudly founded in St. Augustine in 2012. The Kookaburra is your local home for fresh roasted coffee and made from scratch baked goods. From legendary Aussie meat pies to scones and sweet pastries, everything is crafted to pair perfectly with their signature coffees. Whether you love a smooth flat white, a bold Aussie iced coffee, or their famous Honey Badger latte. With multiple locations throughout St. Augustine, the Kookaburra is part of the community and part of your daily routine, from morning commutes to weekend strolls. The Kookaburra, Aussie Coffee, St. Augustine Local. Our other sponsor is my real estate brokerage, 97 Park, residential and commercial real estate. Looking to buy, sell, or invest in property in St. Augustine? Trust 97 Park, your local residential and commercial real estate experts. From historic homes to business spaces and investment properties, 97 Park delivers market knowledge, smart strategy, and personalized service every step of the way. And when you're ready to make your move, contact me, Karen Zander, directly at 904-297-3471. 97 Park, real estate done right here in St. Augustine. So, Ellen, I always start out by asking people, what brought you to St. Augustine? But I'm curious, were you born here?
No, I wasn't. I was born in Atlanta, Georgia, and came here when I was 10. My father was ill, and my mother was having to care for him, and it was the warmer climate and everything, from Georgia. So the doctor thought it would be a good idea. So that's how we showed.
Did you graduated from high school in St. Augustine, right?
I did. I graduated from St. Joseph's Academy and then went on to Flagler College.
Tell me about growing up in St. Augustine. What was it like? Because it's different now.
Oh, it is very different now. I can remember riding my bike to school with my brother. We lived on San Marco Avenue, right next to where Shayla Moore, their parking lot. That's where my house was. And so we lived there a number of years, and we spent, many holidays. I mean, we had a 3-story house, and my mother opened the house up, and we rented rooms. And so the top 2 floors were all tenants. So we always met a variety of people, all walks of life. And my mother would cook dinner at night, and everyone would come together and talk about their day. And so we never knew who was going to be at the table with us at night. So
that's really interesting.
Yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it. I have a lot of memories there.
So San Marco Avenue wasn't as commercial as it is now, correct?
Oh no, all the St. Augustine homegrown people lived on the street. They lived in the streets behind us. One of the radio show famous Pappy Schilling, he lived right directly behind us until he passed away. But we had a great neighborhood. Actually, the treasurer of Home Again, Mike Davis, his family had a house back in our neighborhood as well back in the day. So it's just funny now. You couldn't, if you ride a bike, it's dangerous.
Yeah, San Marco is pretty dangerous. Yeah. So Abbott Tract had a lot of interesting people in it as well, behind San Marco.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of the people I went to school with at, Cathedral Parish and then on to St. Joe, they all lived in the neighborhood too. We all would ride together. There wasn't like school buses then where you get on a bus and ride to school, so it's a lot different. I was very fortunate. One of the local printing companies, Standard Printing, my parents didn't have a lot of money. And we always had what we needed. But one of the guys that owned Standard Printing back in the day, he sponsored me all through school. So I was able to go to private school, to Catholic school.
And people, back when you were growing up, people went downtown to St. Augustine, but it was a different downtown. So new residents don't realize it was, you drove on St. George Street, and there was a hardware store. There was everything was downtown, right? That's
absolutely.
Locals went downtown to shop. There was a drugstore. There was
movie theater there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really, interesting. We could walk anywhere, go anywhere, and always feel safe. Not so much like that anymore. But.
And what we now see is the suburbs of St. Augustine, that didn't even exist. That was all just farmland and dirt roads. And
absolutely.
Well, did you ever imagine that St. Augustine would become what it is now, which is, it's like I think of it as a little metropolis, even though I know it's still a very small town.
Well, I think back then, and the one thing I miss the most about growing up here is that everyone spoke to everyone. You walk down the street, everyone, how was your day? You know, hi, hello, how's so-and-so? How's your wife? You know, everybody talked to one another and they all took care of each other. Now, if you smile and say hello to somebody, they look at you like you're crazy. So it's definitely different than what I grew up. And of course, I grew up also in the time when Martin Luther King was here, and the people that owned the Monson were in our neighborhood as well. So I was friends with them. So I spent a lot of time there. Where you see the Rain Tree restaurant now, it used to be the Corner House. And the people that own that, the Shermans, they had their house, the Corner House restaurant where the Rain Tree is. And then the motel next door was theirs as well. So we all grew up in the same, you know, everybody on San Marco Avenue, all the back streets behind there, we all went to school together.
Did you realize, you mentioned that you, obviously, I should have put that together, that you grew up during the time of the civil rights activities and protests in St. Augustine. Did you realize at the time that was making history?
No, not
because you just lived here, right?
Yeah, and I was young, and you know, even, I mean, everybody, the jail was downtown. You know, everything was downtown.
Yeah, the post office. Well, the post office still is, but
yeah. So I think, you know, just in going to Catholic school also, it was small, unique. Everybody knew everybody. Even though St. Augustine High at that time, they were still fairly small then. Of course, now they're really big. But everybody knew everybody and everybody got along. You know, there wasn't any rivalry there or anything, you know. And we all used to go down to the point at Volano, and
I was going to ask about
on the weekend and have a bonfire, and you know, everybody
back when they were shacks, right?
Yeah.
No AC, just kind of like almost like glorified tents.
Yeah, back in the day, I guess it was probably it was the early 70s, and you know, all the surfers, we'd all go out there, you know, they'd surf, come in, and we had several friends that had shacks there. And we'd hang out with them and crochet bikinis and, you know.
Oh my gosh, those were the days.
So I'm dating myself now. You know, and we used to surf the well then, you know, back then at Volano. And my family lived at Volano for a while. And that was in the 70s.
Way out there, right?
Late 70s.
Like that was considered way far out.
And there was nothing there.
Yeah.
You know, and then, of course, you had Fiddler's Green restaurant back then. Of course, that disappeared, and that was a great restaurant. And it's changed a lot out there.
Yeah, imagine back then, thinking about the multi-million-dollar homes that are on Volano and the private access, and now people can't get to the beach and they can't park, and it's the same with downtown, you know, what it is now, or even the downtown close neighborhoods, what they are now. I talked to Chris Way. He was my first guest actually on this show. And, you know, Chris has amazing stories to tell when he grew up here. And just learning about how easy it was to live here back when you were growing up and what it's become. I'm sure that everyone wishes that they would have invested in real estate.
Absolutely.
Because I think you probably couldn't give away some of those properties then and now.
Well, and it's just, what I hate about it also right now is that, you know, my husband and I, we just don't even want to come downtown.
Yeah.
You know, the traffic, I mean, everything is just so congested, and so the places that we would go out and have dinner or drink or whatever, we can't even get into them.
It was a seasonal tourism area, right?
Yes,
So a lot of the time it was really locals going downtown or going wherever.
And I mean, you go into a place and people knew you. They knew what you drank. They knew what you were going to, pretty much what you're going to eat, kind of a thing. And so, I missed that. So.
And you said once you graduated, you went to Flagler. I'm sorry, I don't know exactly when Flagler switched over. Was it male and female students then?
We, in 1971 is when I first attended there. And I was just out of high school. And that was the first year that they had boys there. And
was that controversial?
And oh yes, and there was 10, and they were all from New Jersey and New York.
Why?
They came down here to serve. So they didn't live on campus. They lived at Volano. All of them lived at Volano, and so it was an interesting year. And I think at that time, I myself. We had a family tragedy just before I started college. My brother was killed. My 15-year-old brother was killed. And so it was a rough year for me going to college and trying. My parents were much older. We were kind of unexpected, if you will. And I I have 6 siblings. So, losing my brother at that age and so senseless was just very heartbreaking.
I'm sure it was. It doesn't go away, something like that.
No,
it
and my
stays with
parents,
you.
I don't think ever recovered from it.
Well, back then people didn't do counseling, or that didn't exist.
Yeah.
You just had to deal with it, right? And not well.
If you went to counseling, there was something wrong with it.
Yeah, no, that just didn't. Yeah.
So then I stayed at Flagler, and then after leaving Flagler, I was overqualified for all the jobs that anybody was offering at the time.
So you got a degree from Flagler?
I did not get a degree. I went there 5 years because I had another sibling die right at the end.
Oh my gosh.
And I had to go with my parents. I had to try to take care of my parents. And I was the only one in St. Augustine. All my other siblings were other places. So I only needed 6 hours to graduate, and I just never could get them.
Life happened.
As a result, I went from college to watering palm trees at a campground out at the beach and became very close with the owners of that campground. And then they encouraged me that, I should do something that I would love to do. So I tried to find a job. I couldn't find one. So I found this temporary job working for the state government on a contract with what they call the CETA program. And so I went in and
What's the CETA program?
It's some sort of federally funded temporary program to train people. And so here I am with all this college, and I'm going to this training program, and I'm working in the food stamp office. And back then they had the paper coupons.
And this was in St. Augustine?
This was in St. Augustine. And so I worked there. And of course, most of the people that I came in contact were low income, poverty stricken people. And so I worked there, and a full-time job became available with the state. And so I said, well, I'm not finding anything else. I had resumes all over the place. So I ended up applying, and I got hired, and I stayed there 27 and a half years.
And what did you do that entire 27? You must have done a lot.
When I started out, I started out as a caseworker for all the economic self-sufficiency programs, which is food stamps, Medicaid, cash assistance for welfare mothers.
So does that mean caseworker means that they came in and you interviewed them or
and see if they're eligible for benefits?
You must have heard heartbreaking stories.
Absolutely. And then there's always the ones that are always trying to skirt the system. We did that. So
how do you distinguish when you listen to people's stories? How do you know whether they're...
I'm a very good listener, and I just have a feel for people. I always have. Things get by. People are clever, just like they're clever now, But I think it's just a gut feeling, and people warm up to me when I talk with them. So I think that that personal, they become attached to me personally, I think is what happens, and they begin to trust, and then they let it out. Then they start feeling guilty. But I only did that. I was a caseworker for 3 years. And then I got promoted to supervisor. And so I supervised all those programs. And then from there, back in the 80s, y'all must have remembered the welfare to work program that was big. And they were trying to get all the welfare mothers off the rolls, the rolls, because they continued to have babies, continued to get more money. And the government wanted to change that. So my job was to get them trained, get them off, get them employed.
No small task.
And yes. And we had, at that time, I think we had about 1,400 families.
1,400 families in Little St. Augustine or St. Johns County back then.
And so in a matter of 2 years, we took that 1,400 with partners in the community. We did what they call a one-stop center, which we had somebody from Betty Griffin there. We had somebody from the, it's Career Source now, but back then it was just the unemployment office. We had all these different partners, and some were just National Guard. They were a partner of ours too. And what we did was we bring these people in and we wrap services around them and then help them lift themselves up to become self-sufficient. And so,
did you have the idea to bring all those partners in, or was that a directive?
That was a directive. Yeah, it was a directive from the program. And so, working with all of these partners was a blessing, because when we get a person that's in a domestic violence situation, because everybody had to report. So if you were in a relationship with somebody that was abusive, we're going to hear all about it when you come in, because they don't come with you. And then we get to figure out. So we would make safety plans and find ways to get them out of the situation. If they needed employment, that was one of our goals, was to get them employed and get them in a position where they can pay the rent on their own, pay all of these things. And I think probably we would have a graduation every year of people that actually graduated from the program. And I think one of the things that really broke my heart was there was this lady that she had 4 kids. She never was up in the morning with the kids to go to school. The oldest daughter was the one that had to get the kids up, make sure they had a bowl of cereal or something. The mother laid in bed, did absolutely nothing. And so this program, as part of this program, we had to, if they didn't have a job, they had to go work in a nonprofit. And so we got her a job. She didn't get paid. She had to volunteer at the cafeteria at the school, at one of the schools where her kids went. And so at the graduation from this, she ended up getting a job at the school. But at that graduation, that oldest daughter, she got up and spoke straight to her mother in the crowd before her. And she said, "I am so proud of my mother, because she actually participates with us as a family now. She gets up. She makes sure that we're up for school. She makes sure our clothes are washed. She makes sure." It changed her life. And she was so thrilled of what her mother had accomplished. But yet it was so sad to hear somebody.
That's the level, that's the bar.
That you never interact with your kids, and your oldest daughter had to take care of everybody, So, I mean, it was really, and the mother cried and cried. I mean, it was, and everybody else cried too. I mean, to this day, just remembering the look on that girl's face when she said that to her mother.
So you said you were a supervisor. What qualifies a person to be a good caseworker? I'm sure there's empathy, but how do you screen people to say you're going to be good at this? Because that seems like an incredibly demanding and difficult job to me.
It is, and it's
and probably for not a lot of pay. Frankly.
It wasn't a lot of money. But it's you're either in it because you like the work and you want to help people, or it's a paycheck to you. If it's a paycheck to you, it's like in any job. Even now, it's very difficult for me to hire people, because I want them to have the same empathy and passion that I do for the people. And people will tell you all the time, it's, when these people come to you, you're like a parent to them.
Yeah, I can see that.
You're like a parent to them, and you're having to give them advice. And maybe the
only kind of port in the storm, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So I think that, it's just one of those things, you have to be built to do it, and fortunately, my upbringing, my mother, she heard lots of sob stories, but she would always give somebody a place or give them a meal or whatever. And so, to her credit, when she passed away with cancer, she there was not an old person at her funeral. Everybody that came was young, was 50 or younger, and just showed how much she helped people. How much she really made friends and lifelong friends. But how you sit around and you have all your old your friends there your age and everything. My mother didn't have friends her age. She always stayed very connected to a younger set of people.
You were doing this well before you were doing this. You were doing this as a child. You were doing this growing up. You were doing this just being part of your family.
Yeah, because living in a place where you have all these strangers coming in and you're having to talk with them, and some were young, some were old, you start learning to adapt, to whatever that is. And
were most of the people that you worked with back then, were they, had they grown up here, or had they moved here from elsewhere and just couldn't get a footing?
Yeah, I think that most of the folks that we had there was a couple of guys that lived there that were from Gainesville, that they came over here because they wanted to go surfing and they wanted to work where they were close to the water. So we had that group. And then you have the older ones. We had an old retired nurse and an old retired couple that had both worked in the hospital setting. But now they were too old to do that anymore. And so it was kind of like their retirement, and they could still do things because they had a little bit of money in their pocket left over. They didn't have to put it all towards rent, Of course, rents back then were a lot cheaper than they are
so
now.
were wages, though.
Yeah, true. But yeah, I worked at the state for all those years, and then I made a change to become the social services director at the county. And so I left.
Why the change?
Well, I was getting towards the end, and I was just fed up with all the government.
But you went to government.
But I went to government. But I originally, what ended up happening was the director of social services at that time, she was going to be retiring in like 4 months. And I was on a board that the county had at that time with all the health and human service agencies. It was the Health and Human Services Advisory Council. And I had been on that board for a number of years. And we had monies to fund nonprofit organizations. And so I was on that board, and she asked me if I was interested in a social services director job. And I said, well, it paid way more than what I was making.
Really? So, going from federal to county paid more?
It did. And so I said, well, and I'm not one to change. I'm very hesitant about changing jobs. I can count my jobs on my hands,
Well, also, I think in what you do, it's important to establish relationships, not only with the people you're working with, but your staff and however you get your funding from whomever you get your funding. So change it. If you have a high turnover, that's going to impact how effective you can be.
Yeah. It's, with the state, when I went to work for the state, it was pretty stable. Everybody there was pretty stable. When I went to the county, there was still a lot of ins and outs, and then it finally stabilized after I got there. But I was in there for, I don't know, less than a year. And then as soon as she left, I applied for the job and was successful in obtaining that job. And I loved that job. I loved working with all the people, and my experience with the state government was really an asset to me.
Oh, I'm sure.
And that network that I built with people in the community. So I believe that that you have to be part of your community. You have to give something. It doesn't have to be money, but you have to give something to be vested in your community. And so over the years, that's what's brought me my success, I think, is that I have built all these partnerships with people, and I will help anyone who walks through the door. They don't necessarily, like right now, people say you only serve homeless. No, we don't. People have followed me from my previous jobs and come and said, can you help me apply for this benefit? I don't know how to do it, and nobody will help me. So we have a lot of older people that come in to Home Again, and they just need us to help them with their application so that they can get their Medicare subsidy. Because you have to get that through the state, or they're eligible for the subsidy and they didn't know. So this $170 that they're taking out of their check to pay for their Medicaid, they could have that back in their budget. So it's just taking the time for those people that need it. To give them that extra. And so the people that I hire at Home Again, that's what I encourage. I mean, I don't want somebody there drawing a paycheck.
Well, it just doesn't work in what you're doing. You have to have
you can't
passion
be successful.
and belief in it.
And you can't, if somebody, raises their voice at you or something, there's obviously something going on. We don't have to trespass them to make a point. So we do a lot of progressive type things with them. We may say, hey, you go back and I'll see you in 3 days, when you calm down and find out. And then they come back, they apologize, and then we let them come back. And then, at some point we have only had to really trespass one person. And that person actually went to prison. But, we try not to do that because everyone deserves a place to be able to be safe and secure, even if it's only for, a few hours. Get a shower, take a bath, get to the bottom of things. So I think that's why we stand out.
So you talked about being at the county, but then did you go directly from the county to Home Again, St. John's, or was there an interim period?
I retired.
Well, it worked well for you.
Yeah, I retired in 2015. I stayed on at the county as a consultant for a year and a half to help them. That was when all the healthcare stuff was going on, and we really needed to rewrite some policies and procedures, to accommodate the new laws and everything, what was happening. And so I stayed on to help with that and help them hire a
That
new
just sounds like
director.
an awful part of the job to me.
Yes, yeah, it was. But I
Dealing
mean,
with bureaucracy and.
But I did enjoy working with some of the meetings that I got to attend and run with other community partners. So it was always, bringing people in that are new to the community and letting them tell what they do and sharing possibilities, other possibilities. So it was like a forum for people to share all their information. So I actually retired, and after I left the consulting job, I was home for 2 weeks. I cleaned, I purged, I did all of that, and I go, what am I going to do now? And my husband was still employed at the time, and he travels, So he says, well, do what you want to do, So at that time I was on the Home Again board of directors, and their executive director at the time put in his 2-week notice that he was leaving. And so they said, Ellen, do you feel like, helping us transition and try to find somebody? We'll put it out and try to find somebody to go in there. But in the meantime, can you kind of look after things for us? I said, sure. I don't mind doing that. So I started going down there and volunteering, And then next thing you know they're offering me a job.
Well, of course.
And
if they hadn't, that would have been a problem.
So that's how I started with Home Again. And it was way different. There was only the executive director and one person.
Yeah, I remember it being small and really starting I remember the initial capital raise and how long it took. I've seen that happen. So I know what a journey that's been.
Yes, it has. And it's been quite a journey, actually.
And some setbacks and
typical of what can happen. And everything just didn't happen as fast as I thought it would. And so once I actually became employed, I was still in the process of trying to find someone, but I figured, well, maybe I can take it to a new level. And that's kind of what happened. And one thing led to the next. And of course, being in St. Augustine for so many years, I had already built a network, and I have a lot of friends here, and also I belong to several organizations locally that I donate my time to, and with that has opened new doors and opened doors for Home Again. Um, so we're just truly blessed to have the incredible board that we have. Everyone has been so committed since the beginning, and Troy and Mike have shared the presidency. Troy has many more years in as president, but both of them really wanted to see this come to fruition, and all their hard work paid off.
Yeah,
so together, I think we did what we had to do to make it happen. And again, thank God above, he was on our side, because I really think it was divine intervention that really brought us to where we are.
Talk about what Home Again St. John's is for people who don't know what it is.
So Home Again St. John's is a safe place that people can come to see a case manager. We do resource and referral there. They can get a shower, get cleaned up, get clean clothes. They can come and do their laundry. What we do when the person first comes in, we have them, we talk to them a little bit, let them know when our services are, and then we give them a couple days there, and then we hit them with the paperwork. And then in the paperwork, and during the first initial visit with them, we try to find out, what they're doing, what are their goals, are they planning on staying around, or maybe they just need a bus ticket to go somewhere else, to a family or something. He came down here for a job. We've had a number of people come for a job. They were promised a job, got down here, and then the job never came to pass. And then they spend their money, car breaks down.
They're stuck.
And they're stuck. So luckily, with our partnerships with some of the civic organizations and churches, we have been able to meet some of those needs and get people to where they're going. Since I've been the director, St. Johns County Sheriff's Office, they have a jail reentry program and outreach group. We work a lot with them to get people back to where they need to go.
He's actually coming in as a future guest.
Yeah,
Michael.
And he does great work, really does. And together we can solve things that, everybody else would say, we don't do anything, just go down the road. Well, that's not what we do there. So what we do is we try to connect people with the resources that they need to meet the needs or the problems that they're having.
And you have a new facility.
We do.
On 16.
Yeah, it took us 15 years to get there. But, and I have been involved with Home Again since the beginning, as a citizen, and as a being the director of social services and stuff. So we were always involved in everything. But, we worked on this project, and it hasn't been until probably the last 2.5 years that things actually came to pass, and everything it was a blessing how everything just came together. And I believe that, like I said, our board is very committed to Home Again. They're very, they're not only financially committed to Home Again, but they are into the making people's lives better. And I think that by them spreading in their circles, that has helped.
And so the new facility is on 16. What's the address? I don't know the address. I know where it is.
Yeah, the address is 197 State Road 16. It's right across from the old Harry's Curb Market we grew up with. And we have 8 transitional housing units there. And we have a main service center. And that service center, we see upward of between 30 and 40 people per day there, sometimes higher.
How do they get there?
Most of them on bicycles or walk. Some ride the bus. But it's interesting because when we were on 207, we had a trailer.
I remember.
And we had showers that people had helped. Home Depot helped us build on the back with their with some veterans, and we built those. And I can just remember how just awful that building was. And then we moved. We had to move because the county was taking and building the apartments. So we had to we had a 99-year lease there for $1 a year, and we turned that over to the county, and then they had to find a place for us to be whole again. So we looked and looked and looked and couldn't find anything. And so they put us on this property that they own on Holmes Boulevard. And that was another bad situation over there, but it met the need and got us to where we are today. So we're thankful that, the county provided that to us and for that, free of charge. And we had to put a trailer on there, which was ridiculous. We could have bought the trailer 10 times by the time we paid all the rent on the trailer, because it took us longer to build than we initially thought. So we have a steady stream of people coming in all the time. Now, there's more there than we have at either other place. We have more people coming in there. I don't know if it's because it's right there on the bus route and it's a main thoroughfare, or what, but a lot of people that we saw before still come to the new location. But I also have noticed that the people that come to that location, they're more helpful and they're doing things. They'll go pick up a broom and sweep the floor.
Is it because it's brand new, looks nice? Is it that? Is it pride? And
maybe it is, because I tell them all the time, this is your house. Treat it like your house. If somebody drops something on the floor, I get on to them. This is your house. This is my house. This is not the way we do things.
Do you see only homeless people, or do you see people who are just down on their luck? They actually do have a place to live, but they need help.
Yes, we see a lot of those people too. And like I had mentioned earlier, we have older people that come to us every year to help them with their Medicare, trying to get their Medicare situation so they don't lose that subsidy, or to help them apply for food stamps. What we have seen a trend lately, and it's been going on for the past year, is we see more people over the age of 60 that are sleeping in their cars. And because of the real estate situation.
Yeah, it's expensive.
It's expensive.
Renting or owning.
We had one guy a couple months ago, he came in, the house he had been in for 27 years got sold by the children. Their parents had died and got sold by the children, and they can't find anything. So what we try to do is we try to help them find housing. We connect them with UF Health, the housing navigator over there, with our current, because they're the lead agency for homelessness in Florida.
I didn't know that.
In St. Johns County.
Okay.
So they took over as lead agency several years ago. And of course,
before they took over Flagler?
Yeah, before they took Flagler had it, and then they absorbed it. And it's been really good because as lead agency, it takes a lot of support, and they have the infrastructure to support. Like if they have a computer problem, or they have, when we were lead agency, we didn't have that luxury. Mm-hmm. So we did everything. They have a whole team of people. So they have a housing navigator, and that housing navigator helps people find or locate housing, and also hooks them up with other nonprofit agencies that get the federal dollars to help house and pay deposits and things like that.
Where do they find housing, though, that is affordable? I mean, I wouldn't know where to find that. And, I own the brokerage. I know the housing costs. Where is that? Or is it just offset by monies from grants or supplements or something?
No. I mean, it is initially on the move-in cost, because you know how move-in costs are.
Yeah, and deposits.
So, like, for example, some people can afford, like there's Casa del Mar, for example. They don't have vacancies often, but they are somewhat subsidized. We have the Oaks, which is for seniors. That's a subsidized. But, unless somebody dies, and you have to be there at the right, and you have to get on their waiting list. Then you have a couple apartments that are out. I think they're called Summer Breeze and Somerset Village. They're out US 1 South. They have their rents are around $1,000 to start, $1,050 to start. We just got a lady housed just day before yesterday, 79 years old. She's door dashing for extra money. And we just got her a place over off Old Moultrie Road. And it's $1,086 for a studio.
I would think that as time goes on, those are going to become harder and harder to find because the real estate's more valuable than the structures that are there at the rents that they're getting. So
Absolutely.
You're going to see those bought out and, turned into something else. That must be a concern for you.
It for sure. And I mean, we work with all our nonprofit partners, and they're experiencing the same thing. I mean, it's just luck to find anything, and or find someone that'll actually say, you know what, I'll lower the rent.
Yeah, what's the incentive for an owner, an investor to do that?
Or and we try to check the papers. Like every now and then there'll be a room for rent or something, and then we found places like that for people, and we found that so the wife dies, the husband's there, and he just wants somebody there for company. Well, and because we have a increase in the number of seniors, we're able to find placement for some of those seniors.
Have you been doing this as long as you have? Have you seen multi-generational? Have you seen the next generation come through now? Or do you feel like you're able to somewhat break the cycle that people are in? Families are in, I should say.
Sometimes you can. I can remember when I worked for the state, and then I went to the county. I worked in a fraud unit for a while, just trying to help them out because they had a lot of fraud going on at that time, and they were just trying to solicit anybody that would volunteer for, a couple weeks here, a couple weeks there. And I'll never forget this one case in St. Augustine that they had been on generation after generation after generation since 1954. I mean, her great-grandchildren, all of them following in the same manner.
Is that a want or is that a true need?
Well, I think that...
and I don't want to judge. I don't know.
Yeah, in their particular case, that's all they knew. All they knew is how to get over on the system, in that particular way. But now we're seeing that that the people that we're working with, like we have a couple guys right now, they grew up in alcoholism, or they grew up in foster care, or they just never had any upbringing. And this one guy that we're working with right now, I'm so proud of him. He has just done a tremendous job. He's quit drinking. He's clean and sober. We kind of trying to get him connected back with his family just so he has some family support, even though it's not the best situation, but at least let them know he is out here trying. And he said, I'm not going to do this anymore. I need to do something different. So what he was interested in was merchant marine. So we got him in a sober house. He worked 2 jobs, saved up enough money to take the course, and he put the money in the course, and he passed the first course, the seaman's course, and now he wants to do the government vessel course. So we're looking for funding to try to help him get that course. He says, I can make it if I can just get the course paid for. I can make, I can make enough money in a side job that I can make to stay somewhere because it's in another state.
How old is he?
He is 39.
Good for him.
And he, very articulate young man. Alcohol just consumed him at an early age, and he lost everything. He lost his son. He can't see his son, and he wants to be very much that dad that he didn't have. So right now we're working with him trying to get through that, but you got to take one step at a time. Mm-hmm. And he's finally he's
taken many steps already, though.
Yeah. So he's regurgitating that to me every day I see him.
But he's taken many steps.
Yes. And so now I've connected him with someone locally who's a merchant marine. Let them talk and see. And so he's real excited about that. So we have another guy that he's been clean and sober for 3 years. And he was on meth. He was just a mess. And we had him in rehab at least 7 or 8 times.
But I would think it's very difficult. You go through those programs. I would think you would go through those programs, but if you don't have a way to change where you live, how you live, you're going to go back to being surrounded by people who are doing that, or places where that's happening. And as an addict, you can't put something that tempts you in front of you day after day.
And I think
so
that's
there's
the
so
key
many
to
things.
it. And the guy that we had that was clean, that is still clean after 3 years, he's actually a supervisor for Sunbelt, but he had to go away to get clean.
Yeah.
He had to go away, cut all of his friends loose, everything.
Yeah.
And so that's how we preach it to them. You got to cut these people loose. Don't buy into it, because they want you to stay right where you are and steal from you and take from they take from each other. Yeah. They want everybody to stay down with them. They don't want anybody to be successful. And so the one that's the supervisor for Sunbelt, he had to leave. He left the area and then came back after 3.5 years, and he works for Sunbelt here in Florida. They gave him a job promotion, and he's like a really good cheerleader for us. He's just a country boy, but he said, he goes, I don't even want the drugs. You know what I mean? People could sit it out in front of me, and I wouldn't take it, because I have a life now. I didn't have a life then. He goes, I have the life I want. And so he's really comfortable with it, reconnected with his family and everything. And
that's wonderful.
He's made them proud. So, we take everybody's in a different place. And so, as you know, we have Veterans Village.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about that.
We have Veterans Village, and that is a motel that we purchased, back, in March of 24, we purchased that. And we have a program over there. It's at both places. It's not just affordable housing. It is a program. They have to enter into the program. And so for veterans coming off the street, it's been really an eye opener. Not only did they serve our country and had the biggest sacrifice of all, and then come back with all these problems. And then they just,
it spirals, I'm sure, from there.
It's just been, so it's tough. We inspect rooms at both places once a month if they need to make sure everything's tidy and everything, they're taking care of everything. We're available 24 hours a day at Veterans Village. We have staff there 24 hours a day. We have a pretty good group for the most part over there today. We're not quite full yet. We're still interviewing and doing some background checks on people, because we can't have any offenders or predators there. And we do have one teenager with his mother who's a veteran. And when she first came to us, she was just working here, working there. No, she couldn't get any focus. And we were able to encourage her to go for a job at the old fort. And so she got the job at the fort, and she's been there ever since. And so her son is 15, and they live there. And so we have a lot. We have in the age differences. We have men and women. And so I think our youngest right now is 26, and our oldest is 75.
That's amazing.
But even the ones that are older, they if they don't want to work a part-time job, because most of them are on Social Security or VA or something, then they have to volunteer in the community 20 hours a month to re-engage. So that's it was difficult for us in the beginning to get them to do that, because they were isolated and didn't want to socialize. Now they're becoming more like a family. So we do a lot of activities with them over there. We did take a man, we interviewed a man that was in prison in Florida, and we took a chance on him to come in. And he was in his mid-60s. And it turned out that he's a great tenant, and he really wants positive change. And he's been a real blessing to have. And he's very helpful. He's volunteered for things. He cooks. He grew up in his parents' restaurant, so he cooks a lot. And the guys like that. The guys and the girls like that. So they take turns. They have a laundry there. They can do their laundry. We have a lot of support from local veterans programs that provide things that we need. to help offset the cost for us. The rent or the program fee, as we say, for Veterans Village is $800 a month plus a deposit. The only pets that they can have are service animals.
Are most of the costs for the people, is that offset somehow by grants or other monies, or do they end up actually paying it themselves?
They pay it themselves. Now, on occasion, we've had somebody lose their job, and then, they couldn't, they had to find another job, so their rent might have gone a little late. But what happened is we try to recruit other veterans organizations to assist in that if we can, or refer them to another agency in our network.
Are you the only place that does these sorts of things in the county? I know that St. Augustine's the county seat, but I think about like out in Hastings or just other places. Is there? I would think it would be difficult to get to your locations for some people. Are you the only entity that does these sort of things?
No, I mean we have St. Augustine Society, or what we know as the St. Francis House. And then the Port and the Storm, that's run by the St. Augustine Society as well. One tends to go for those 18 to 24, Port and the Storm, and then they have the Crisis Center downtown.
But that's still downtown St. Augustine.
Mm-hmm.
How do you reach, are there many people that need the assistance outside of St. Augustine proper?
Yeah. Sure. Now, St. Francis House has an outreach team. It's called SOS. And they go out all over the county. They find people wherever they're camping. They try to offer them services. Sometimes we'll wildfire clinic. We help. They help us. They go around the community too. Sometimes they go out with the SOS team.
They have a bus, right?
And they have a bus that comes once a month.
Yeah.
And then, of course, our Dining with Dignity program that we are doing is down over there off of 207, where the city bought that property behind Winn-Dixie. So they've moved from downtown to over there. So we run that program. We've run that program for years. And that program, we have over 450 volunteers in that program, and over 40 churches that bring a nutritious meal to these folks at no cost to the agency. No cost to our agency at all. They provide this free of charge, and it's just their way of giving back. And we do that on State Road 16 as well. Last night we served 33 people last night, and downtown they're serving between 50 and 65 people per night. And transportation is provided from downtown by the Council on Aging bus, the transit bus. They always stopped right there where we were feeding downtown anyway. So they actually transport them there, and we'll bring them back on a bus.
So that's how people who don't live in kind of St. Augustine proper are able to access the services, or do they? Yes. I just wonder, I'm not thinking only so much about the homeless, but people who are they just need assistance, and they're living maybe somewhere, but they can't continue to keep that going.
Yeah, well, St. Johns County Social Services, they have people that go out to Hastings.
Okay, that's what I was asking.
Yeah. They go out to Hastings, and Pie in the Sky goes out to Hastings to deliver food. I actually was the first president of Pie in the Sky for the first 10 years. And then when I took this job, it was just too much for me, and I had to leave Malia, my partner in crime, over there. But that agency has grown and provided so much food to so many people. She and I used to do it way back in the day because we both worked in Hastings, and we look like the Beverly Hillbillies strapping all this food on the back of a truck, and we would take it out. And we would go out in the fields, and we've fallen in many a cabbage trap out there, So, and at that time I was working for the county at that time as well. But, taking that idea and then bringing it to what Pie in the Sky is today is just amazing. So there's just so many great things out there, people doing great things that, But again, I think there's a lot of big hearts out there. It's just finding them.
I want to give you an opportunity to talk to people about how they can help you and help Home Again St. John's and Veterans Village.
Well, I mean, we have volunteer opportunities. We have an employment center at the main building on State Road 16. We're looking for people that can help people do resumes and things like that. We already have volunteers that come in and want to do haircuts, which is great. Clean them up, do their beards, do all that stuff. We always need supplies, and we just got our website up and running with our new branding and everything. And
what's the website?
It's Home Again Saint spelled out Johns.org.
So SAINT Johns.org.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so we have a wish list.
Blake, are you able to throw that up at all? Thank you.
And so we have a list of items, and people can call anytime, but always disposable, items that currently were disposable plates, cups, creamer, sugar, coffee, razors. We ran out of razors last week, and one of our Good Samaritans had some sent to us via Amazon, so that was a blessing. So they could shave. So we try to let people provide those things to us so that our budget sticks strictly with providing direct service. So there's no fluff at Home Again. There is no.
I'm sure there isn't. Yeah. And people can donate monetarily, right?
Absolutely.
As well as their time or supplies that you need.
Mm-hmm. And if we are having a Celebrate Compassion event on April 16th at 6 p.m. That's for our donors and our volunteers to come out and thank them for everything that they've done for us. And we encourage people to come out. It's if you want to know more about what we're doing and everything, we'll be out there. We do have a limit on the number of people that we are going to be able to entertain at Tringali Barn. But if people want to know more about it, they can give us a call at 904-436-5382. But we can take just about anything. We are in need of small men's clothing, like 30, 32, 34, those types of clothing. We have so many runners in St. Augustine. If people got tennis shoes, you know how runners do, they wear them for a month or a couple months, and then they throw
They're fine, but they're not fine for running.
Yeah. So if they could donate those shoes, if you belong to a running club, collect a box of shoes people aren't using anymore and bring them to us. I think
high school athletes would go through them pretty quickly, and they're still good.
Yeah. So any of those things, backpacks, we're always in need of backpacks. Go through your garage, and if you find any of your camping equipment that's no longer of use to you, you don't want to sleep on the ground anymore, bring that to us,
And bring that to you means to go to the State Road 16
location.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Ellen, we have to wrap up, but I just want to say to you, you are going to leave this world making such a difference in your community and truly in people's lives. We always talk about, I want to make a difference, but I can't really imagine the number of people, the real human beings that you have had a positive impact on. And I don't know, I know a lot of people who give back, and I'm grateful for that. I applaud them for that. But it seems to me like you have just an incredible amount of good that you've done in human beings' lives. And listening to your story that started from the time you were young and still living at home, just listening alone, hearing people, seeing people, and letting them talk to you, you made a difference way back then. So I just want to thank you and applaud you. And I hope that you don't ever forget and belittle the difference that you've made in people's lives.
Well, I appreciate that. And I do want to mention, because Troy had talked to me about it yesterday, was that the board understands what I've done, and they feel good about the people's lives that we have made positive impact in. And our center over on State Road 16 was named after me. And so
Good.
they're putting the plaque up probably in the next couple of weeks. But I was so shocked,
You
but
deserve it.
it's it's for other people. When they see that, they can say, "Hey, everybody can do this. Anybody can that wants to." So I just encourage people to do those random acts of kindness. You see some lady trying to get out of her car and having difficulty, go over there and lend a hand. So I mean, we all can do something, no doubt.
Well, thank you so much for coming in today. This has been one of my favorite interviews. Thank you. I really am
Thank
grateful for your time and for what you do. So again, Ellen Walden, Home Again St. John's and Veterans Village. That was today's episode of the St. Augustine Chronicles. Thank you for tuning in.